All right, so good evening, everyone. First, I just want to thank you for coming out. My name is Peter Light. I'm the Superintendent of Schools here at Acton-Boxborough Regional School District. Want to make a few introductions, but first I just want to let everyone know that we are being televised by ActonTV, so this will be available online and on local cable access. So thank you so much to Mark Ducey and ActonTV for being here tonight and for making this available to our community. I want to take an opportunity to introduce a few people in the audience here. Those of you who were early tonight had a chance to take a tour of the school with Dr. Chris Whitbeck. He's the principal of Douglas Elementary School. Seated to my right, Chuck Adams from Skanska, who is our owner's project manager. Emily Grandstaff Rice from Arrow Street Architects, who is the project lead for the architecture firm working for us. Marie Altieri is our deputy superintendent of schools, and she's been working on this project since its inception. Mary Brolin is the chair of our school building committee and former school committee member from Boxborough, and she also has been working on the project since its inception. And then I also want to introduce J.D. Head, who's sitting in the audience as well, who is our director of school operations here at Acton-Boxborough. So we are here tonight to talk about the Douglas Gates and Preschool building project, and this is a community forum. This is one of a series of forums that we're putting on between the towns of Acton and Boxborough to be able to educate all of our community about the importance of this project for our school district. So this is an important project for us, and I think there's a number of things we want to make sure we're clear about with our community. First, this project allows us to take care of multiple schools, which are all at the end of their useful life. So both the Douglas and Gates Elementary Schools are both 50 years old or 50 plus years old. We also have a preschool, which is operated out of our administration building, and those of you who may be longtime residents of Acton know that that is the former Miriam School, and that building is actually 60 plus years old. All three of our schools have similar issues. They have issues around accessibility, they have health and safety issues, and they also lack a lot of modern educational opportunities that are available to many students in other communities with more modern facilities. District-wide, we also, all of our classrooms are currently at capacity, and we need additional space. We have been fortunate over the last few years, and you'll see this in a couple slides coming up, but we have been on a declining enrollment trend. At the same time, we have needed to offer more services for students in special education and also English language learners, and those services require a significant amount of space in our schools. Because we've had declining enrollment, we've been able to use some of our existing classroom spaces in modulars to be able to address those needs. However, over the next 10 years, we're expected to see fairly significant enrollment increases again, and we will not have the type of space that we need to provide the right number of services to all of our students. This is also a cost-effective solution, which allows us to address multiple issues, in that we're combining three effective schools right now into one building. So there's a cost savings associated with being able to do that. And then finally, being able to address these three projects in one building allows us then to use the additional district resources that we have to be able to address capital needs in all of our other schools and ensure that they're well-maintained and modern facilities for all students, not just in this one school building. I want to play a little video, and I want to thank Dr. Whitbeck as well as Ms. Lynn Newman, who's the principal at Gates. They put together a little video tour of the Douglas and Gates Elementary Schools to talk about some of the space deficiencies that they're currently seeing in the building.
Hi, I'm Chris Whitbeck. I'm the principal of the Douglas School here in Acton, and I'm going to give you a tour of the school and show you some of the highlights. This is our school cafetorium. It is where all of our students eat lunch, and we gather for all of our all-school assemblies. The cafetorium is built for 280 students. We have to fit in over 400. You'll also notice that the stairs are not handicapped accessible, so any student with a mobility disability cannot make it up onto the stage. One of the major problems of the school is that it is too small for the number of students that we have, and so we have added on modular classrooms. Those are temporary classrooms that have been here for 16 years. This modular houses our music program. Every student throughout the school comes here once or twice a week. So this modular houses 4 different programs, and the staff are very crowded as they teach in this space. This modular houses our art program. Again, a very, very, very crowded space with not enough room for students to move around or for storage of student materials. The art room spills out into the hall for additional storage of both materials and student projects. And down at the end of the hall is our art room sink. So all of the students, kindergarten through 6th grade, have to come out of the art room to use the sink. And we've actually had to hire assistant staff for the younger students to supervise them using the sink during art. The Douglas School is 2 stories, and while we have a ramp that goes upstairs and wheelchairs can go upstairs, we only have stairs going downstairs, so the school is not handicapped accessible. So space continues to be an issue at Douglas School, and we have converted storage closets into classrooms for small groups of students and larger storage areas into conference rooms. This is our main storage area in the school. It is packed with many of the materials from our school, densely packed. It houses custodial materials and also furniture from around the district. Unfortunately, to get through the storage area, you have to go under several sewage pipes. One of the things that we do a lot at Douglas School is have students break out into small groups to do work, and we use the hallways. Unfortunately, there is no private space in the hallways, no small nooks, no study areas, and everybody's learning is very, very visible, which is nice, but very difficult to concentrate and work with many groups out in the hallway. So thank you for joining us on the tour of the Douglas School. As you can see, there are a number of problems that we're faced with every day, and that's why we are looking to build a new facility.
Hi, I'm Lynn Newman, principal of the Gate School. I'd like to take you today on a little tour of the Gate School so you can see some of the space challenges we have here. So here we have one of our spaces that we work with lots of our children. In this room we have a shared space, our occupational therapy, physical therapy, and our STEAM coach. And so this is a room where small groups of students work, but as you can imagine, the space is quite small to provide the type of services that we'd like to offer. Additionally, as you look up, the walls do not quite go up to the ceiling, and so another one of the challenges to this space is that it gets noisy in the hallways, and especially during lunchtime, being so close to the cafeteria, it gets very noisy for support services. And in this room, we have support services for students who need a little extra help in math and reading. The first space is the math space, and so the assistant works with students, up to 4 to 5 students with each group, and that's in grades kindergarten through 3rd grade. And then just behind her workspace we have reading support, and so the reading assistant is also here working with students, maybe 4 in a group, and so combined you have potentially 8 to 10 kids working in this space for extra help. And here we are in the Gates Library. The library space is quite small. We use this space for multiple purposes. In the morning, it's a space that can be used for string and band instrument lessons. The meetings are often held in here for staff meetings, professional development in the afternoons, and our extended day program often uses this space to support homework. And directly off the library, we do have several offices. This is our speech room, and this is a room where one of our speech therapists works with students. When the students are in the library, it tends to get a bit noisy in here, but she certainly does her best to work with the students in this space. And this space is where we offer special education services for our children. This is for students in grades kindergarten through the 6th grade. We have 3 special educators that share this space, and they work with students at different times, depending on the program. At times, we can have up to 25 students working with the adults in this space, in the areas of math and reading. And directly connected to that special education space, we have an additional space. And in this room, we have 2 adults that are regularly working with students in this space, and assistants that also join the students. So it's a space between the 2. We have 5 adults working with our students on special education and support services. And here is the Gates cafeteria, and this additionally is a multi-purpose room for the school. This is where in the afternoons where we have our extended day program, both in the morning and in the afternoon. During the day, this is a space where the kids would have their lunches. We have a 2-hour lunch period. And oftentimes you would find teachers working with small group instruction in this space. And the use of the stage is also a space that's very popular with not only our music program, but also our physical therapist. The stage is a very important place for primarily concerts for band and strings and chorus, but it's behind the stage that you would find a spot where our physical therapist is working with students who are working on physical therapy. And you can see on the floor it's a bit tired, but it does lend itself to being able to be a space where they can work on gross motor skills and support services on their education plan. So I want to thank you so much for joining me on this tour. As you can see, the Gates School is an awesome school, but it's our hope with the space constraints that we currently have that the new building will help to resolve some of those challenges. So thank you for joining me.
So again, I would just like to thank ActonTV for helping us to produce that video, and also a thanks to Dr. Whitbeck and Ms. Newman over at Gates. So this is the history of enrollment trends, and it's also a projection for the next decade. And what you can see, and I alluded to this earlier, but we have been fortunate that in the period of declining enrollment, as we've needed to allocate space for increased services for students, we've been able to do that because we haven't had as many students in the district. But even with the decline in enrollment, we're actually at 100% capacity in all of our elementary classrooms across the district, and we're scheduled over the next decade to increase by about 500 or 600 students again. So we know that space is at a premium, and it's going to continue to be at a premium for the next decade or so. This is a slide from a former town meeting when the towns approved the feasibility study for this project, and I thought it was a nice slide to bring back right now. This actually shows the results of a master planning study conducted by Doran Whittier back in 2015-16, and it really is highlighting what the various deficiencies are for health, safety, and welfare, for code compliance, functional use, handicap accessibility, maintenance, energy efficiency, and hazardous materials. And the feasibility study that we conducted actually studied all 4 of the boxed out schools. So it studied the admin building, it studied Conant, Douglas, and Gates. And so you can see by doing 3 of these schools in one building, we're actually addressing most of the highest priority needs across the entire district. During the feasibility study, we did a number of different things that I'd like to highlight for you. First, we engaged consultants, including Arrow Street Architects and Skanska as our project manager. We engaged in a comprehensive visioning process led by Frank Locker Associates, which solicited a significant amount of feedback about the educational vision we have for our students here at Acton Boxborough, that included both community feedback and educator engagement through that process. That drove an educational plan which guided the design of the new facility. We also conducted additional stakeholder engagement, both on the energy efficiency and sustainability side of the building project, but also around the location and features that the school community wanted to see in the new building. That included face-to-face focus groups, but it also included a significant number of surveys that went out to the community. And through the feasibility study, we ended up studying 16 different options for this school project at the Douglas, Gates, and Conant sites, which, as you can see from the previous slide, were selected because they included all of the highest priority areas across the district. The feasibility study included information on site suitability. It also included information about community input around the new building project, and then finally a look at the costs and looking at keeping the costs at a place where they were cost effective for our community. This next slide is an overview of all of the different options studied. So you can see we studied 4 different options just on the Douglas site. We studied 6 options for a consolidated school for Douglas and Gates on the Gates site, and then the last row on the bottom are for a consolidated Douglas and Conant school on the Conant site. I'll come back to this slide in a moment. We ended up choosing the Gates site for a number of reasons. When looking at the Douglas site, there were 2 real driving factors. First, the site was just too small to house a combined school. Second, there's a floodplain around the Douglas school that limits its buildable area. At the Conant site, we realized that there is sufficient acreage to be able to build on. However, there is a patch of wetlands right in the middle of the location where we would want to put a school that eliminated the Conant site from consideration for the idea of a twin school. And then finally, at the Gates site, we were fortunate because there was sufficient area next to the school to be able to construct the building, and it was buildable, even given significant considerations for the wetland sites around that in the various floodplains. So that is a little bit of our thinking around how we ended at the Gates site. We also looked at this idea of building a twin school from a cost-effective standpoint. One of the first projections that came in from Arrow Street were a series of cost projections around what a new building would cost. And as you can see from this slide, the number 2 option, which is listed at $91.5 million, was to keep the Douglas School on its current site and build an addition onto Douglas School to increase the classroom capacity. So that would renovate the building that we're in tonight, and it would add classrooms, and that was a $91.5 million option. A second option on the Douglas site that we considered was tearing down the existing CT Douglas School and rebuilding that from scratch, and that came in at $99 million. And the option that we settled on, which we have as a project budget, there's a typo on this slide, I apologize. It's $117.3 million was the final price for that school. And that was to build a consolidated Douglas and Gates school on the Gates site. So I talked earlier about the idea that this project needed to be cost effective for taxpayers. And this was one way that we were able to take care of 3 projects and keep it cost effective. So the preferred option I'm going to talk about a little bit now was the Douglas Gates School with preschool classrooms attached. Right here you're looking at the site, and I apologize for people watching at home. I'm going to turn a little bit, and I just want to orient you to the site. This parking lot on the north part of the site is the current location of the Douglas Elementary School. So for those of you here tonight in person, we are sitting right about the second tree right here. And on the south side of the site is this parking lot is the current site of the Gates Elementary School as it sits right now. The bridge in between is that beautiful boardwalk through the wetlands and the waterway. Spruce Street is located to the south, and Arlington Street is just off of what the visible area is. Just to give you a sense of how the site circulation will work, we will continue to have vehicle traffic only coming in from West Acton via Spruce Street. No buses will enter or exit via Spruce Street. Parents will be able to come in and staff and park here, but some parent drop-off along the front of the school, circulate back out. This also provides access for a second preschool entrance that is specific to that age group of students. Buses will continue, as they do now, to serve the Gates School right off of Arlington Street, and they would enter and exit through the driveway located there. They come in the front. There's sufficient area here to be able to stack all 13 buses that serve this school. They turn around in the traffic circle and they head right back out on the same way, in the same entrance that they came into the school. We currently run bus service for Douglas and Gates in a combined bus schedule, so there's no increase to the bus traffic coming into this school. We also recognized that traffic in West Acton was a concern for the community, and so we built a secondary parent drop-off located on the current Douglas site. This, on a picture, seems like it's a long walk from the Douglas site over to the Gates site, but it's actually the same distance that we currently have at the Parker Damon building, from the parking lot to the school. So there's really no significant distance that people would have to travel to be able to have a parent drop off on the Elm Street side and then be able to come across the bridge and enter the school from the back. Plans for the footbridge include a renovation of that bridge. We're able to, we believe, use the existing footings for that bridge, but we will widen it to make it a plowable width so it can be maintained during the winter months, and we're also planning on making that a covered bridge for West Acton. We think that's a benefit not only to our students and families who will use that bridge year-round, but also to our community who uses this extensively throughout the school year. On the Douglas side, we would be demolishing the current Douglas school, and this would be used for additional parking, parent drop-off, and also for the replacement of the softball field that we're losing on the current Gates site. In the new school, which is located right now on the softball fields for the Gates school, there's ample play area outdoors. We have 3 separate play areas. One is for the preschool and kindergarten age group, one is for grades 1 through 3, and the third playground is for grades 4 through 6. We also looked at the beautiful wetland areas through our architect. In fact, that was one of the driving forces behind why we selected Arrow Street, was their pitch to us about how to maximize the value of the wetlands to the building and not just think about avoiding them. But there's substantial views from both the cafeteria and the library media center, which you'll see is the heart of this building, over into the wetlands, which we think will really help bring this idea of having the outdoors come into the school for our students. I want to talk a little bit about educational benefits with this facility. So with a modern school come a number of types of spaces that we don't have available to our students right now at either the Douglas or Gates school. We are planning to build a 2-story library media center that's accessible from both schools. This has ample space for the stacks as well as breakout spaces for students and faculty to be able to teach and work in small and or larger groups. We also have 2 science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics labs. These are called STEAM labs. This is the first building that's being planned where MSBA has recognized that these are important parts of an educational design and are reimbursing for the design and construction of these spaces. We also are able to have 2 multi-purpose rooms, which are designed as music and art rooms that can either be opened up to have one large space for either professional learning or full grade level assembly meetings, or closed off and used individually for typical classroom use as we go through the year. We also have a large learning commons, which is a public exhibition space for students and faculty to be able to gather. We could have grade level meetings, we could have multi-grade level meetings. We can use that to demonstrate student work throughout the school year and really welcome the community into our school. We have not only a full-size gymnasium, which is the size of a middle school gymnasium, but we also, in this project, were able to work with the state to be reimbursed for the construction of an additional 3,000 square foot health and wellness gym. To give some perspective on the size of that, for those of you who were on the tour a little bit earlier, the current size of the Douglas Gymnasium is actually smaller than the proposed health and wellness gym in the new building, and then the full-size gym is 6,000 square feet, or twice that size. So this is a great value for our students, our teachers, and our district. Each 2 classrooms in the new school also share a small breakout space where either teachers or classroom assistants can actually work with students, where they're highly visible from the classroom, but working in a place that doesn't either disturb students who are working with extra support, working on group projects together, or working with a teacher one-on-one. Additionally, we have multiple outdoor learning spaces planned throughout the campus of this school that also include an outdoor amphitheater. So we are fully expecting that this idea of connection with the environment is a high priority for this building. Finally, we're able to provide improved learning spaces for our students with special needs. There are 3 learning centers in this building, 2 separate speech and language rooms, 1 sensory room, and 2 resource programs for each elementary school. So as you saw from the video and the tour, where we sometimes have 4 and 5 different programs operating out of one classroom, now we have appropriate spaces provided for each of our different programs within the school setting. Finally, there's a significantly improved space for the early childhood program with access to nurses and our specialists in art, music, and gym. Currently in our preschool program, which serves primarily students with disabilities, they have no access to nursing. They actually have to go outside and go to another school to have access to a nurse. They also have no access to our art, music, or gym teachers in the district. So this will be a significant improvement for that population of students as well. And then additionally, as I think I said earlier, for students with disabilities who are in our preschool program, which is the primary population that school serves, that building itself is not accessible, so students cannot get from the first floor to the second floor because it has no elevator, and this new building actually has 2 elevators built in, so it provides ample access. This is, and I'm going to turn around here again, this is the floor plan for the first floor. The way we designed the school, if you're familiar with the Parker Damon building and the Miriam and McCarthy Town schools, that school is a left and right configuration. So when you enter the Parker Damon building, on the left is 3 stories of the McCarthy Town School, and on the right is 3 stories of the Miriam School. In this building, we took a different approach because we wanted our schools to feel like a smaller community, and this was with feedback from our faculty, it was with feedback from students and feedback from our administrators. And so the first floor that you see here is all of the common spaces of the school. The second floor is all the Gates School, and the third floor is all of the Douglas School. So once students get to their floor for their classroom, it's really a 1-story school that they spend a lot of their day in, and then they're only accessing the first floor for some of those specials that you'll see. This, at the bottom of the screen, would be the Spruce Street entrance to the new building. And when you come in, the main entrance of the school is located in the southwest corner. And as you enter, there's a double vestibule for security purposes. And when someone enters the first vestibule, they can either turn left and go into the Gates School Administration Suite, or they can turn right and go into the Douglas School Administration Suite. At that point, they would sign in at the desk, and then they'd be permitted to enter the school. The Learning Commons, which I talked about before, is this horseshoe-shaped area. These are actually a set of stair risers. So that the lower level is actually depressed into the site plan for the school. It also allows us to work with some of the topography of the existing Gates site. I mentioned 2 STEAM labs to increase the district's focus on science, technology, engineering, and arts, and these are prominently located around that horseshoe of Learning Commons so that we can really bring learning to the front and center of what we're doing in each of these schools. The north side of the corridor is designed for the preschool, and it has its own separate administration area and entrance. It was very important when designing a school for preschool age students, our 3- and 4-year-olds, that we make this part of the school feel small for them. We didn't want 3- and 4-year-olds feeling like they were entering a very large building. So there's a separate, smaller entrance for them, administration. There's separate parking for preschool families to be able to park and drop students off. And then we have our 9 preschool classes. The coding that you see in colors is just to delineate the difference between some of our regular education and special education classrooms. That's done for state accounting purposes. This area in the back is our cafeteria, and what you can't quite see is that the left side right now is just labeled as Gates, right side is Douglas. That's not 100% set, that's flexible. There are 2 performing areas in the building. One is a full-size stage, like what you see here. The other performing area on the opposite side is actually floor level, and we're looking at using that as a flexible space. The cafeteria, one of the concerns that we heard about from the current Parker Damon building was the size of the cafeteria made it very, very loud at lunch when we were bringing several hundred students into the cafeteria at the same time from an elementary standpoint. And so in the design of this building, we tried to address that concern by putting a removable dividing wall that can either be opened for large-scale performances or it can be closed when we want to have separate lunches. We also provided a separate small dining area for students who might be overloaded from a sensory standpoint and need something smaller to be able to have a calm, small lunch group. Here are our two multi-purpose rooms that I mentioned, also off of the Learning Commons. It also provides places for our music performance groups to rehearse during the day and in the morning with close proximity to the stage areas. So as students are getting ready for performances, they have that opportunity to use this as a warm-up area and then go to the cafeteria to perform. And then the example of the small gym, which again is slightly larger than what the current Douglas gym is. And then you can see the double-sized gymnasium, which is sized for a middle school full competition court. On the second floor, this is the Gates School, and I'll talk a little bit about this in detail, and then the Douglas School on the third floor is very similar, so I won't duplicate my efforts there. And I'll go from north to south along here and then work east. This set of classrooms are our kindergarten classrooms, and then first grade right across the hall from them. As you work down here, you see second grade, third grade, fourth grade, and then a separate wing for fifth and sixth grade students, because we know developmentally a fifth and sixth grader is very different from a first or second grader. And so providing a separate space is very educationally appropriate. I mentioned that every two classrooms share a small breakout room, and you can see that located here. I'll show you a picture of that in a moment so you see how it looks in a classroom. But you can see every two classrooms shares this similar room regardless of what grade level they're in. I also talked about having finally appropriate spaces for math support, reading support, as well as some of our special education programs. And you can see those smaller group rooms are all located interspersed throughout the hallways. Each of the two schools has both a music and art room located on its school level, so that the students aren't traveling up and down for those specials. And then really the heart of this building is this idea of a two-story library media center. The first floor of the library media center is actually the middle floor of the school, and that is designed to house the traditional kind of stacks that we would see, as well as some learning spaces and breakout spaces. But then on the third floor, you can see it's open. We will have a railing. We were told that. But you can see it's open to below. However, there's a lot of breakout space planned for this upper level, which is also accessible from the Douglas School. Last area that I want to point out to you is this red area down in the corner. This is for our counseling and support services, as well as some of our special education services as kind of a landing spot. It also provides a place for a conference room for when we host team meetings for students with disabilities at the school, when we invite families in. It also provides a very small administration office so that the principal or assistant principal can work up on the floor of their school, as well as having an office on the first floor. But this is really a flexible space and not a permanent location for any one person. This is the third floor, and what you can see, I'll just point out here because this will lead to a slide in a few more minutes. These rectangular shapes on this roof are actually solar panels, photovoltaic arrays, and we're showing you this on this rooftop, but the entire roof of the building has similar photovoltaic arrays, and I'll talk about energy and sustainability in a couple minutes. This is an interior view looking into one of our classrooms. And so we wanted a welcoming space as students come from the hall, and you can see this first area right here is kind of a welcoming vestibule for students coming out of a corridor where they have a place to sit, take off boots, hang backpacks, and there's some classroom storage for the teacher as well. On the opposite wall that you can't really see is a countertop with some storage beneath, and then also sinks for students to be able to work right in the classroom and clean up. Looking in from the vestibule, you are welcomed into the main classroom area, which is kind of the standard classroom. This was designed intentionally to bring a lot of light into the classroom and maximize the views from the environment into the school. Each of these windows is 4 feet wide by 8 feet tall. So it really gives you some perspective on just how much light and how much exterior view this room affords. This wall over here is actually an example of that small project breakout room that I had mentioned before. It was designed with lots of glass so that if students are working in there, they're easily visible by the teacher in the classroom, and yet able to work without disturbing what's going on in the main classroom area. This is an alternate view looking into the classroom, where now you're seeing the classroom first, And in the background, you see that welcoming vestibule for students as they enter the room. And over here on the right back wall is that breakout space. And this door, while it enters from this classroom, has a similar door on the opposite wall to be able to go into the adjacent classroom. This is an exterior view of the building, and I think Arrow Street did a wonderful job. Arrow Street spent a significant amount of time in West Acton looking at the architecture of the various buildings in West Acton. And one of the nods to the West Acton community are the design of the various windows that you see around. They were designed to mirror and imitate some of the various windows that are prevalent throughout West Acton. We also knew that we wanted something that looked like it belonged in Acton. We tried at first to have a pitched roof, but we knew we had a 3-story building, and if you add a pitched roof on top of a 3-story building, you end up with either a 5 or 6-story building, which was not appropriate for our community. So we settled on a flat roof, but the architects took a look at this sense of looking at a history of Acton and settled on having the building look similar to kind of a mill building feel to it, so that it looked period to the town, even though it was a modern educational facility. Another interesting thing that you see that I can point out, this is that bus loop and bus turnaround. It's separated from the car traffic pattern so that cars don't go in. It also provides our students some additional play space during the school day when the buses aren't present. And then over here, in addition to having solar panels on the entire top of the roof, you're actually seeing solar canopy over the parking area. And that is designed to, maximize energy efficiency. I'm going to talk a little bit about sustainability in the new building. This is a triple net zero design, and what that means is we're trying to achieve 3 different goals. One goal around energy, one goal around water, and one goal around waste. The energy goal is that we are producing heat provided by a combination of geothermal wells and 2 additional electric boilers, which are designed to supplement those geothermal wells on the hottest days, or coldest days of the year. We are also able to achieve through this a zero combustion building, so there's no fossil fuels coming into this building. There's no oil, there's no gas, no propane. It's completely electric. And then the photovoltaic arrays and solar panels that we have on the roof of the building and over the parking lots are actually designed to produce 100% of the energy that we need to heat the building and provide electricity to the building. From a sustainability measure regarding water, we're doing rooftop water collection. So as it rains, we will be taking that water that comes on the roof of the building, storing it in underground tanks, creating gray water, and then using that water to flush the toilets. And then finally, with waste, there's 2 aspects to this. One is during the construction and demolition process, waste materials are sorted on site and then recycled appropriately. But then additionally, we're going to continue to work on a district's efforts around waste by continuing to enhance our composting program that we already have in place, and also continuing our recycling program that we have in place. Few things, and this is an important slide. Why is this cost effective for our taxpayers? Number one, there's a time value for consolidating our 2 schools now. As I mentioned before, the replacement of Douglas only was a $99 million project. We're able to take care of the Douglas School, the Gates School, and the preschool for $117.3 million. So if we spread those buildings out over a period of time and thought about construction inflation over the same period of time, these would be very expensive projects just taken one-on-one. So we believe that being able to combine them brings a value to taxpayers, knowing that we don't have the Gates School 7 more years down the line, then the preschool 7 more years down the line, and then Conant School 7 more years after that. There's also, as I said, there's an opportunity to include the preschool in this. And one of the biggest opportunities to include the preschool in an elementary building project is that if you build a preschool on its own, it's not eligible for state reimbursement. However, when you include preschool classrooms in an elementary building project, all of those classrooms now are eligible for state reimbursement, and we are getting those funds for those classrooms. We also looked at how to phase this project. In other words, did we want to build one school next to the Gates School and then demolish Gates and Douglas once the students move in? Or did we want to build half the school next to Gates, tear Gates down, then build the other half of the school on the current Gates School, and then move Douglas in. So it would have stretched it out for an additional 15 months, but we also, by doing a one-phase project, were able to save an additional $7 million on the cost of this school. Once the building committee got the project estimates from Arrow Street Architects, we love our architects, and they designed a beautiful, beautiful facility. There were things in there that educationally our students needed and would be fantastic, but then there were also some areas that we thought we could save money. So for example, we saw some exterior landscaping opportunities where we can build a beautiful landscape, but we didn't need several $100,000 worth of some different features. So for example, I think there was a $500,000 budget for boulders, which were rocks that we would place on the site. Yeah, we can get those for free at other places and on our own site. We still have some budget for that so that we have appropriate spaces, but it was not a $500,000 budget item. We also looked at concrete benches, were designed into the original building. When we looked, we found that we could purchase a bench for a lot less money than it took to build a concrete bench. So we looked at opportunities like that to reduce the cost of the building, and the building committee ended up having an opportunity to save $3.5 million just on value engineering items alone. And then the final opportunity we have as a community is really to take advantage of what are now historically low borrowing rates or interest rates. If you have purchased a home recently, you know mortgages are at an all-time low right now. The Fed just cut interest rates yet again. That has a similar advantage to Acton and Boxborough when the district goes to bond this project. And so just having the low interest rates alone was a significant piece of why our current cost estimates in the impact of taxpayers are so much lower than what we initially projected even a year and a half ago. Highlight of some of the project costs. The overall project budget is not to exceed $117.3 million, and that is voted by the building committee. We cannot exceed that amount. The state does not allow us to exceed that amount either. We have already paid 1.3 of that toward the feasibility study, which was approved about a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago at town meeting. And so we owe a remaining $116 million for this project to move forward. The MSBA has voted to reimburse us $38 million of project costs, which is roughly 32.8% of the total building cost. That leaves the district share at $78 million. The Acton piece of that will be $66.3 million. The Boxborough share is $11.7 million. And you can see here the impact to taxpayers for the median priced home in Acton is between $452 and $509, and that is based on a $590,000 home valuation. And in Boxborough, the tax impact for the median priced home is between $314 and $354 a year, and that is for a $610,000 home valuation. Just another look at that. The numbers for single-family taxpayers are based on the median home price in each community, but the difference between the low and high number for both Acton and Boxborough is the higher cost for taxpayers is if the district elects to go with a 25-year repayment schedule, and the lower cost is if the district elects to go with a 30-year repayment schedule. That decision has to be made by the treasurer when we go to bond this project. Right now, because of interest rates, we worked with both finance committees in the town as well as the financial staff of each community and our building project team. And the current thinking around that is to go with the lower range, which is a 30-year bond. So that would be looking at the blue numbers right here. And that's the annual impact for the median single-family priced house. Overall timeline for the project. So way back April 2017, the district was invited into the MSBA eligibility period. The district then went to the taxpayers in both towns, and towns approved funds for the feasibility study and schematic design. The district then formed a project team, which included Arrow Street and Skanska. That moved forward into the feasibility study, which began last August. Throughout the year, last year, and into this spring, we conducted the feasibility study and began schematic design on the new building project, and just went to MSBA on October 30th and had the funding approved to be able to move forward for this project. So we have official state authorization to proceed. That gives us 120 days to secure votes from both towns to design and now construct the building. And that is an MSBA guideline that from the time they approve your project scope and budget, which was on October 30th for us, we have 120 days to secure funding from both towns to have this project move forward. And so we will be going to the communities in December for votes on that project. If approved, we will then move into the final design phase. We've already submitted a schematic design, as you can see from the floor plans we showed you, but there is still work to be done on the details of the construction documents. That would happen from early winter into the spring. We would intend to break ground on this project with an early package of site work, including relocation of a septic system. That would happen as soon as students leave this spring. And then it's 2 years of construction, and we would occupy the building with students in September of 2022. It would take 1 additional year for some site work to construct the new parking lots and demolish the existing Douglas and Gates schools. We have had a number of questions about what happens if the building project was not able to proceed because it's not approved in the towns. And I apologize for the amount of words on this slide. There was no great way to summarize some of this information because we wanted it to be accurate. But we could certainly reevaluate certain portions of the project, and we have an opportunity to bring it back to voters within 12 months. However, if the second vote failed, then MSBA historically would remove the district from the pipeline, and you would have to start over in the capital process again. So if the district does not move forward with the project and we elect to come back a year out or 2 years out, what would happen, we would have to reapply to MSBA and then start the feasibility study process all over. So we would first go to voters to get money to conduct a feasibility study. We would conduct the feasibility study and then hold similar meetings to what we're doing right now. We cannot resume that process right where we left off. The state does not allow you to do that. And it's likely to take multiple applications to the state before you can get accepted into that program again. We could also, as a district, elect to go forward without state funds for this project, which means that 100% of cost would be on the taxpayers of Acton and Boxborough, and we would not have the $38 million commitment that we currently have from MSBA. And then finally, I think I'll try to summarize this, but we have increasing enrollment needs over the next 10 years. We're already at classroom capacity. We also, as you've seen from the videos or the tours of the building, we have 2 schools that are in need of significant capital work. We were just able to launch a $20 million capital plan, which is funded through the district's operating budget, and that just happened last year. The voters at town meeting approved that project in both Acton and Boxborough, so we have significant work happening to every other school in this district, knowing that we're trying to move this project forward. Certainly, if we can't move this project forward, we have to reevaluate that capital plan and have a longer-term solution for the Douglas and Gates schools. Douglas is in such need at this point. We don't have a plan B right now because we know that there's such a low value, assessed value to this school, that even if we want to put money into the building, we're likely to trigger at least a code renovation of the building because you can only, I believe, improve the building by about 1/3 of its assessed value over a 3-year span. So there are some limitations on what we could do with Douglas without triggering a renovation of the building anyway. So just to give you some perspective, if the project didn't pass, it's in our thinking certainly because we need it to be, but we don't have a solution at this time. So now I am happy to take some questions from anyone who's here tonight, and we have a great team here at the table and some other people in the audience. If it's a question that's more appropriate for them, I will turn the floor over. I would ask, because we are being filmed for ActonTV, if you don't mind coming up to the mic to ask your question, that way we can capture it so audience members who are listening at home have an opportunity to hear the question and the answer. So thank you.
Nancy Tavernier.
It's on.
Okay. Had 2 questions. One, in terms of traffic flow during construction, may I assume the construction traffic would come off of Arlington Street and not Spruce Street?
Emily or Chuck, do you want to take that? There's a mic right there on the table. Television.
Yes, the thinking right now is it would come off the Arlington Street side, because therefore then we would stage the construction traffic so that at a time when the buses are not coming in and when the buses are leaving. So yes, that is the plan at this time.
And the other thing in terms of addressing the tax impact on a single-family home, what you're quoting is year one rate? Because doesn't it go down every year through the 30 years?
So the guidance we received from all of the finance people in both towns was actually to go with a level payment plan. And the reason we did that is it spreads the cost out over 30 years to the residents who will be using the schools.
Okay.
Whereas if you have it start high and decrease in payments, then the people who are living in Acton right now end up bearing the brunt of that. And then people who are using the school 30 years from now are paying a significantly less portion.
Good. I would encourage you to advertise that fact.
Sure.
Because it's a nice, I didn't realize you could do the single payment, same payment.
Yes, just like a
Yeah.
mortgage. Yep.
Great, good.
Great, thank you.
Hey, I'm Michelle Kenny. I have 2 children at Douglas. I live in West Acton. I'm very much a proponent of this project, and thanks for all the work you've done. One of the questions I had is looking at the other side of it. Some citizens in town might be concerned about the paying taxes for something that either they don't have children in the district or their children have left. But on the flip side, my thought is what does that do to their home value? I would imagine it's going to increase, and I'm wondering if anyone, either from Arrow Street or involved in this project, have a case study that can kind of compare the impact of having a new school in proximity or within a district has to a home value for those that might be at some point getting ready to sell their home.
I don't have one specifically for this community, but that's a great idea, and I think that's something that we can definitely work on. We have done work adjacent in Harvard, and that was a primary concern. And we were able to work with some real estate agents in the town to be able to do some of those studies, so that's a great suggestion.
Right, yeah, I would imagine that the short-term paying several $100s in taxes to thousands of dollars that you get in property and increased value for your property would be significant. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Molly O'Neill. I was just wondering, where are the kids that go to Gates going to go to school during the renovation?
That is a great question. So the students going to Gates currently will continue to go to Gates throughout the entire building project. Gates School, as I mentioned, is located in this parking lot just to the west of the new building. One of the first phases of the project, we do have to remove 4 classrooms from the eastern side of Gates in order to be able to have a safe distance to the new building. We will relocate those students using modular classrooms to a different part of the Gates site that's attached to the school. But students will be able to continue to go to school at Gates safely until they move into the new building.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you. All right, since I don't see any other questions, Mary, I don't know if you want to come up and make any remarks to close us out?
Well, I just want to thank you all for coming. I would ask if you have any concerns, if you really don't feel you can support the project, we'd love to hear those concerns as well, because maybe we can give you information that would change your mind. So thank you for joining us. Tell your friends. We have, let's see, I'm going to do this off the top of my head, a forum in Boxborough on the 14th. And then we have another one here, and that is December 2nd. Special town meeting is December 10th. Yeah. We will be doing a coffee with the Boxborough seniors on November 18th, I believe it is. And we've done one with the Acton seniors, although, are you going again?
We have been to the Acton Senior Center twice, and we're headed back there a third time coming up in November.
So lots of opportunities to meet with us, tell your friends, tell your high school friends, and we look forward to seeing you at special town meeting. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all so much for coming. And again, thank you to ActonTV for being here and making this accessible to the community.